All right, and we're live. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and a warm welcome to all here at MESC Red Devils NCR. This is Delvin, and today I'm joined with Vaibhav, Wali Bhai, and Anshuman Bhai with me. Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you're doing well. And well, tough week, tough to take, tough to digest. Uh, Two games and positive results in both of them until the last minute, and we let it slip in both the games. So we are here after a week of setbacks, and let's talk in particular about the game, the United Arsenal game, where after a long time, the fixture had the importance that it had when the fixture was at its prime. Uh, Two heavyweights finally entering in a game which had much more significance compared to just fifth and sixth place squabbles. Anshuman, I'm going to ask you your first thoughts about the United Arsenal game. What were your thoughts about the game? How did you like that the Premier League's original rivalry is back and back with a bang? It felt like it never went away the way the game was throughout the 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, given the kind of fixtures that we are used to reminisce about when we think of Manchester United and Arsenal, this was certainly up there. And there were a lot of reasons to be excited because neither of the teams have been this high up the table while competing with each other for a long time. So yeah, it was a very exciting affair. I don't really have a lot of hard feelings for the game. I'm obviously not happy that we did not win the game, but it's not one of those games where I left the screen thinking, okay, something terrible has happened, or I'm not satisfied with any of this, because there were two teams and they had their ideas. They went at each other hammering tongs, and it was a game of finer margins, and in the end Arsenal prevailed even when you look at the goals. So I don't really have anything, a lot of complaints regarding that game in particular. It was a well played game. It was a well played game all in all, and the better team won. It's as simple as that. So yeah, no too hard feelings, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the general consensus among the United fans was the Crystal Palace draw was a much harder result to take than the Arsenal defeat. Because I think everyone deep down knew that, considering the fact that we were entering the Arsenal game on the back of a midweek fixture, the general consensus that was that Arsenal would have been all over us right from the off, and that was not the case. The fact that we went toe to toe and it took them the whole 90 minutes to finally come up with a winner says a lot about how well ahead of schedule we are as far as our team is concerned under Eric Ten Hag. So, Walibai, coming to you, what are your first thoughts about the game? How did you feel about the game? And is this game a sign of things to come as far as the United Arsenal rivalry is concerned?
Well, like we've all mentioned over here, I think we were more disappointed that we dropped points against Crystal Palace because that was like a dagger. To be honest, we did not expect that free kick to go in. And yes, once again in Arsenal, once again it was heartbreaking. The reason for that is because we conceded a goal once again at injury time. So that's two consecutive games where you've actually conceded goals at the 90th minute. So yes, disappointing. However, if you basically ask any United fan before the game, I don't think any of them were much confident against Arsenal, especially when we were heading to Emirates. That too, without our most important player, Casemiro. And the reason why they have why some of the United fans have said that we did go 2-2 against them, although the stats according to the Arsenal fans are well in favor of them. Well, we all know that the ball was massively going to be in favor of in possession of Arsenal for majority of the game. We obviously know that they will be the more dominant team. We will be playing at the Emirates. Hell, even when they came to Old Trafford, they were the ones who had the higher number of possession. We all know that. We knew that. But in spite of that, we did manage to, hold them to a draw. The first half was actually much better than the second half. But, you're playing against the best team in the country. And it's no shame to accept that, you lost to the better team. However, you did make them sweat. You did make them sweat. They might say they were dominant, but they were just 3 minutes away from being, bantered by United fans because they would have said that you haven't defeated us this season. So you have to give credit where credit is due to Eric Ten Hag. He has taken this team leaps and bounds, and at the same time, you have to give him a lot of credit. The reason why I say that is because he has one hand tied behind his back. The squad depth is thin. The fixture congestion is there. We're playing with McTominay in midfield. Unfortunately, you have Ericsson who gets, who's playing every game. You have to feel sorry for that lad. Then David De Gea's distribution has been a problem. We'll talk about that as well. And Van Bissaka, although he has been a revelation in the second half, but you saw the importance of a better right back. So there are plenty of things where we need to improve on. So in spite of that, to actually go toe to toe against Arsenal to almost get a draw, I think I was quite happy with it. I'm not too disappointed. So
Webov, after the game, I know this is United stream, but then just in case, I'm going to ask you the question that a lot of people have been wondering. Do you think Arsenal can really do this? I mean, because the way they played against us, it never felt that they were flustered. It never felt that they were overawed by the occasion. I mean, even at the times when they went behind in the first goal and when we equalized, it was a case of all right, what do you have next? And then at the end, it prevailed. It felt like the third goal was coming, and it was more from Arsenal's perspective than United's perspective. So, do you think can they really do this?
Look, I think Dylan, one very important thing when you are in those title races, we've been in many title races. One very important thing is you make your home ground a fortress, right? And Arsenal in past few years we saw. I mean, even in Emirates, we had the famous moonwalk by Jailings, right? So basically, Emirates was becoming a banter for Arsenal, right? This time they look more solid. Arteta has been working with that group of players for 3 years. He's been able to take harsh calls. Getting rid of Aubameyang for like what 350K per week, getting rid of Leno, bringing in Ramsdale, bringing his own players and bringing his own ideology in. Look, because we are so used to seeing Manchester City and Liverpool going toe to toe, even in a relentless season, because they have such a good squad depth. Um, I would say, look, if you compare the squad depth, Arsenal, I mean, only Man City can touch Arsenal, right? If anybody who's going to stop Arsenal, it's Man City, because I feel Liverpool and Chelsea, although I mean, not Liverpool so much, but Chelsea do have the squad depth, right? But they're very far behind. United, as Valibhai said, I don't think we have the squad depth to go toe to toe with Arsenal, because we'll be playing 3 times a week. If you count the Carabao Cup fixtures, FA Cup, Europa League, Premier League, it's going to be relentless. I can see Arsenal or Arteta, sort of just focusing on the Premier League all along. And it could work for them, right? They have got the 11, they are clicking. It could very well work for them. I think the season decider, where the title would be heading, would be the two fixtures, the Arsenal Man City fixtures. If Arsenal, even if Arsenal draw in both the fixtures, for me, they're taking the title. So that just speaks volume. I can just say that because Arsenal have never been in a title race for so long, it's just very difficult. And because we know what City is capable of, I still have my doubts. I mean, probably after those two fixtures, I'll be more clear.
Fair enough, fair enough. So, like you said about the fixture congestion, just to make sure, United will be playing 18 games in the next 63 days. That's a game every 3.5 days. So it's going to be a madcap time frame where we are going to be run to our bare bones at a certain point of time. So without wasting much time, let's just dig into the game. Let's talk about the first half in particular. Anshuman, let's start with the first half. Uh, as expected, Arsenal came out of the blocks flying. The first 4 or 5 minutes, they were all over us. The only thing was that they did not get a shot or did not have enough to trouble De Gea at that point in time. But then, as you could see slowly when the game was passing around, slowly as the game progressed, United began stringing passes, and then that Rashford thunderbolt. I mean, if you look at that goal closely, it was once again Weghorst making that run, which gave Rashford the space to pull the trigger. But it all started with that move on Thomas Partey. So, what did you make of the goal, and how well it was worked? Because I believe the moment Rashford overcame Partey with this dribble, I think there was only one outcome, and with the form and with the confidence that he had, I think he's at that stage in his career where whatever he does will come off. What did you make of that goal, and how important was it to get the opening goal in a fixture like this, which had such high stakes involved with it.
Well, the one thing that you look at Rashford and you realize is that his decision making issues that he has had in the past seasons as well, they haven't exactly gone away. But the one thing that you can see him doing more is that he's making more attempts. It doesn't matter whether it works out or not. He's having a go at it instead of just keeping it in his mind whether, okay, should I go this way, should I go that way. And when he took the ball beyond Partey and we attempted that shot, my immediate thought was he's not doing this last season. He's not doing this the season before that either. This is not the Marcus Rashford that we know of. So a lot of credit to him for being able to come back from the psychological and the physical distress that came with him playing 60 games for like 2 seasons under Solskjaer, which led to the surgery that he had to delay because he was playing in the Euros as well. Came back into a Manchester United setup that was already going downhill, so psychologically did not really help. And then the media never helps, so that is always an issue there. So for him to be able to come back from that, and as a player, he deserves a lot of credit because at the age of 25, he's finally looking like he's on his way to become a star performer because he has always been a good player. But the worry with him has always been that given the kind of coaching changes he has had to endure early in his years, has the time gone for him? Is it too late for him to become like an absolute star forward in the likes of Mbappe, Messi, and Ronaldo that we talk about? So one of the another that is one thing. A lot of credit goes to him to be able to grow as a player in general, and I think a lot of credit has to go to Benny McCarthy, a forward coach that was brought on this season, because I'm not sure what exactly he has told him. But the observation that I have made is that Marcus Rashford is taking more attempts than he was making last season, and that is the only thing that I can think of that is making a lot of difference. I think the coaching staff is just telling him, don't worry too much about the decision making aspect of it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if you find an opening, take the chance. And he got that opening. And again, like you pointed out, Wout Weghorst engages the centre back so as to open that space for him so that he is able to engage the ball in that way. That's why Weghorst is there to press up from the front. And that is exactly the kind of striker we did not have in either Ronaldo or Martial. So he did his part. Rashford did his, and it's the kind of Midas touch that he has right now. Everything he touches is going to turn into a goal. So, yeah, credit to him. And it was mightily important for us because Arsenal, we knew what exactly Arsenal were going to do. And without Casemiro, it was a very worrying moment for us as to how exactly we'll deal with all that attack and all that intensity Arsenal were going to come at us with. And that we were able to score the first goal was quite uplifting because even though you could say that okay, it was one of those goals where the XG was not a lot there and it's one of those that went in. Okay, fine, but we still took our chances and the goal went in. So it in the long run it will help us immensely because we will be able to back ourselves to at least take a shot at the opposition even in a game where we are not the favorites. So from a mentality point of view, that is very important both for the team and Rashford in particular.
Do you think that goal was against the run of play, or do you think we deserved it because of the prolonged spell of possession we had for the previous 4 or 5 minutes? I think the possession was level pegging, and I think there was a while where Arsenal weren't able to, penetrate our box or our final third with that much smoothness and with the efficiency that they were so accustomed to until they encountered us. Do you think that goal was against the run of play, or do you think, at hindsight, if we look at it in that opening phase, we deserve to take the lead?
I think in that very instantaneous moment, the goal was more against the run of play than it was a very sophisticated product of a sophisticated build-up play. That is what I have because the Marcus Rashford taking that kind of a chance from that kind of a distance, taking as less time as he has, is more reflective of the confidence the lad has in him right now than anything that we did not as much as it wasn't. Uh, it wasn't a complete counter attack which entailed a lot of pace and a lot of verticality, but it wasn't exactly one of those goals that we created in a very sophisticated manner. So I have to say that it was more against the run of play than it was anything a long term result of anything that we did.
Yeah, fair enough. And that goal was Marcus Rashford's 20th of the season in all competitions, and he's touched the 20 mark barrier. And from now, from here, he's obviously the favorite to get more than 25 goals this season, which will be his most productive season in a United shirt. So good for him, and hope this form continues up until the end of the season, because heaven knows we need this form. We need him to be scoring and firing on all cylinders right up until the end. Uh, Volleyball, let's talk about the next phase in play. This is the phase after we took the lead, and I think the lead didn't last even for 6 minutes, and then Arsenal come back with the goal. And it all starts from a poor David De Gea goal kick. I mean, the signs were there. Before the goal, there was this one cross which went in, and Aaron Van Bissaka just hoofed it in for a corner because he did not know exactly who was there behind him or whatever was it. So it wasn't like it wasn't coming. The signs were there, but then uh, let's be honest that De Gea has had an improved season in all metrics basically. You take saves, you take those long passes, whatever it is. But in the Arsenal game, De Gea wasn't at his best when it came to the kicking side of it or the distribution side of it. There was one instance where he did not look up at all, and Luke Shaw was right in front of him, and he just passed it out of play. Same thing happened for the equalizer. His goal kick was poor. Martinelli presses it. The ball goes for a corner. Aaron Van Bissaka ball watching, and then Nketiah just comes in and goes through and just powers in a header. Do you think the goal could have been avoided, both at the start because of the poor goal kick, and also if Aaron Van Bissaka would have been a little more alert in marking Nketiah's run, because that is what Nketiah is going to do. He's going to be on your blind side, and he is going to make that run, because that's your natural forwards instinct, something which Martinelli does not have yet, but Nketiah does. So, do you think that this goal could have been avoided, or and what do you make of the goal that we conceded, the equalizer?
Well, if you look at the post-match press conferences of our manager Eric Ten Hag, he has said that all three goals were due to a mistake. So I don't think any of them were uh, like a blueprint of what Arsenal usually have been doing. So uh, Aaron Van Bissaka, that first goal that we did concede, we have seen him do it plenty of times under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He hasn't been aware for his back post. His aerial ability is not as good as Diego Dalot. We did miss Diego Dalot, and Diego Dalot's aerial ability and especially his defensive alertness at the back post is something which is very underrated. We talk about him, being the progressive right back, but that is something which we missed in the last game. And last week we were having this talk about David De Gea that he did not get the proper coaching. Probably that is why he is not that keeper who is supposed to evolve according to the modern game. However, he did say that he did improve in certain aspects. But when you increase the level of competition, when you come against one of the finest pressing teams, one of the more cohesive teams who know what to do, David De Gea's demeanor seems a lot of a goalkeeper is supposed to assert himself. That's been the mantra of modern day goalkeepers, and Emi Martinez is like one of the perfect examples of that. You need to assert yourself. David De Gea, on certain occasions, yes, he's an excellent shot stopper, but mentally, I do not know. He seems weak on certain occasions, and one of the biggest examples of that was in the second half. I do not remember what minute it was. The ball was right up in the air, and what we all saw what he did. He instead of catching the ball, he
He
just
punched the ball. Yeah. It was
he
it was in
punched
the
the ball.
middle of the second half. Yeah, somewhere in the middle of the second half. Yeah.
And this is something which he has done previously as well. So, and his distribution again, he's not press resistant. If you put pressure on him, he can cause a mistake. We have seen it time and time again. So yes, it is a mistake. Definitely, it is a mistake. But at the same time, I do not blame Eric Ten Hag for it. I think if he had the proper players with that profile who are actually press resistant, who know how to basically. You see, Edison, he's actually quite calm when he's on the ball. That is something which we need. We do not have that. And as far as Aaron Van Bissaka goes, against teams, again, that will be pressing high, he will be struggling. And that is what we saw in the previous game. So, yes, there were mistakes. They capitalized on those mistakes, Arsenal, and which is why they are a proper team right now. They're not just depending on individuals. Like currently, we're just waiting for Marcus Rashford, Casemiro. Our defensive backline is the most complete unit at this moment of time. But when we go forward, I think Casemiro and Rashford are the only two individuals who have been outperforming day in day out. So yes, in order to actually win, like Ten Hag has said, if you want to become champions, then you have to avoid such mistakes. In order for us to avoid mistakes, either you fix up these problems, or either you get players who will be solution to these problems. So yes.
All right, so we go into the half 1-1. Not a bad result by any stretch. The game hasn't been as dominant by Arsenal as people thought it to be. Very equally poised in the second half, and not even 7 minutes into the second half, we concede. Saka with a long range shot. My question to you, Weber, uh, does David De Gea get beat from there? First. Secondly, uh, Luke Shaw normally has been one of our best players this season in defense. Has been improving by every game. But do you think his technique of giving Saka too much space was the reason that Saka was able to take the shot in the first place? Because there were many instances where Luke Shaw did back off Saka, and while initially he got a fair degree of success with it, but then after a certain point, Saka adjusted his game and then he began to breeze past Shaw. And then he absolutely tormented Shaw in every way possible once when he got the hang of it. So, A, do you think David De Gea should be getting beat from there, considering that the shot was pretty long? And second, what did you make of Luke Shaw's method of defending Saka? Two instances, what are your thoughts on those?
Like I think both seem to be very technical questions, but both have very different aspects, right? First, let me get to David De Gea, right? I mean, we probably in this channel when we try talking about David De Gea, or when we try defending him, let's put it in that way, we talk about him being the best shot stopper in the world, right? One of the best in the Premier League, at least, you know. But I think when you are playing in a league as competitive, as relentless as the Premier League, I don't think there is any major difference between somebody like a Emmy Martinez or somebody like a Nick Pope, for example, in shot stopping wise. You know, Nick Pope has had a very good a very good record. You know, even Edison, Allison, all these guys are very good at shot stopping. Why do we talk about David De Gea being a problem in our back five? Is because of his his game sense, right? He cannot adopt himself to be the modern goalie, right? Yes, he's done well. Yes, he's been a great servant to the club. You know, he's changed his game. He's adapted. But I mean, eh, shouldn't we look? Shouldn't we be going forward in the game, right? Joe Hart had been doing well for Manchester City, right? I mean, I'm sure Pep Guardiola would have done something with him. You know, he would have, if Pep Guardiola would have maybe, done what Ten Hag is doing with the Haya, maybe he would have coached him or something like that. But in titles and winning big, you need to be ruthless. That's what I feel. Do I think David De Gea should have been beaten from the because of David De Gea standards, because of what he's done and produced for us over the years? I don't think David De Gea should be beaten from that. And about Luke Shaw, look, I think Luke Shaw, it's very peculiar with Luke Shaw because I think because Luke Shaw had a very good left-sided centre back, initially in Varane, then in Martinez. I think he was really fortunate for that. But yesterday he came across against a very formidable team, who love to attack, who love to press very high. We saw that I mean, in fact, I mean, every team who plays a very relentless game, wherein you're not allowed to play a natural game as a wing back, right? You need to be deep, you need to be very acute with your defensive work. It is going to be very difficult, right? I think Luke Shaw needs to, I mean, introspect in his game a lot because, I mean, Bukayo Saka, a kid who's just 21, 22 years old, he sort of changed his way. He sort of changed how to play against Luke Shaw. That's not Saka playing against every other left back. That's not Saka against, probably the Tottenham left backs. That's not Saka against Tottenham. If a 22-year-old guy has a game sense of changing as to what he needs to do to better his game, Luke Shaw needs to do that, right? But again, I think Luke Shaw also falls into that same category of those, I wouldn't say old center backs, but I think left-sided center backs. I think those old, see, there's a ton of difference between Malasia and Luke Shaw, right? Clearly, Malasia is what Ten Hag is looking forward. Somebody who can bomb forward, somebody who can do the defensive work when needed, somebody who can be relentless. Luke Shaw, I think he's been good, but when he's been good, we've been ultra defensive under that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer season. Remember when through that Euro season, I think in that season, up until the Euros, Luke Shaw was, I think, world class. But there has been a reason for that. We play a very, very defensive side of football. I feel Luke Shaw is just not good enough, when we need to go up, attack, and, I don't think he can hold the post that nicely.
I think I'd like to differ with you on this matter because I think in this season Luke Shaw has been one of our best players, and in our side, he is one of the best progressors of the ball. I think even when he was at left centre back, even he was at left back, his ability to know and how a build up progresses, I think that's a very underrated quality which a lot of players do not have, and Luke Shaw brings that quality to the fore. So, and I don't think we've been anywhere that defensive this season, and yet Luke Shaw has put in some really good performances over the past few months. So I have to disagree with you on that, saying that he's not good enough when we have the ball at our feet. But then I found his method of handling Saka rather peculiar because this is not something that he normally does. That is
Look,
what I feel.
look, Dylan, look. He has been good in this season, right? He has been good. He's a decent left back, but I think going forward, he's not the answer. Simple as that. We need somebody better than him going forward. I mean, uh, it's just how it is. He is a decent left back. He is a very, very good left back. He is decent. He can do a job. And I mean, under Ten Hag, every player has massively improved. It's clear that the Haya has improved a bit. Luke Shaw has improved a bit. You can say Fred has improved. Wan Bissaka has improved. But is he the answer to the question going forward? I don't think so.
Yeah, fair enough. That's yeah. At the end of the day, it's your opinion, and fair enough. If you feel that way, so be it. Anshuman, bhai, let's talk about our equalizer. Yeah, yeah, sure.
No, no, I thought there was.
No.
You can.
Anshuman, bhai, let's talk about the equalizer now. United scoring from a corner up until last season was an absolute myth because United scoring from corners was actually non-existent. But here we have been scoring from corners, and I think this has been one of our greatest improvements throughout the course of this season. That we are once again a threat on set pieces. I think because of this organized chaos method of corner taking, I think we are becoming much more tricky to defend against when it comes to corners. And I think the exact same thing happened in this corner, where do you think now Lisandro Martinez did everything correct? The header, he had to perfectly judge his header, he had to do all the hard work. But the issue here in this goal is could the Arsenal defense have done better? Because that was the only moment of indecision that Ramsdale had in the entire game, and that cost them. Gabriel also wasn't able to, cover the post, cover his goal as effectively as he normally was. So, what are your thoughts on the second goal? Do you see the visible improvement on our set pieces and the way we take them? And what did you make of Arsenal's defending for that equalizer?
So the first question is that we are doing better this season is simply because Eric Ramsey is also in his second season as our coach for set pieces, and it's clear that the coordination that Eric Ten Hag has with his very specific coaches is much better than whatever we had going in the previous year under Solskjaer and Ragnick. So that is one thing. Now that Eric Ramsey has his feet under the table and he's working with players that Eric Ten Hag specifically wants, so he is able to come up with a more sophisticated solution. So there are a number of reasons as to why we are doing better on that front, and I'm glad for Eric Ramsey, because when you look at the coaches we have had, I think the case has more been the fact that Manchester United has proven to complicated an environment for them to thrive in. Because when you look at Kieran McKenna, he's thriving at Ipswich. When you're looking at Michael Carrick, he's thriving at Middlesbrough. So it's credit to Eric Ramsey for starting to show some results here. It just demonstrates that when it comes to scouting our coaches, we are not doing that bad a job, but we are not really offering them that up feasible environment for them to prosper in any way. And it's just an example of Ramsey coming through, so that's nice. And as far as Arsenal's defending in that corner is concerned, I don't think it was anything of a blunder on their part. I know that every time you concede a goal, there is some degree of lack of action on the conceding team side and some degree of some degree of good fortune going on the scoring team side. So every time, if you are an Arsenal player, if you are an Arsenal coach, you want to look at that situation and think, okay, what did we do wrong? And if you are United, on the United side of the argument, you want to look at that and see, okay, what did we do right? But the reality is sometimes the both of those things can be true. And this was United taking a well, but earning their opportunity and taking it, and Arsenal just not doing good enough in that moment. So that Lisandro Martinez is good in the air. He is a good header of the ball. None of that is a doubtful issue. That he was able to find himself in that area, and he was able to. When you look at the trajectory of the ball, he loops the ball inside the goal. So that is a lot of credit to him. I don't think Ramsdale could have done too badly. I think there was even an Arsenal defender on the line who tried to chip the ball away at the last moment. On another day, it goes out and everyone praises the Arsenal defender. So these are the kind of finer margins you have to keep in mind. That it was a very well taken goal on her part and not necessarily a blunder on Arsenal's part.
Yeah, because I looked at the goal and I personally felt that maybe Ramsdale could have stayed on his line rather than because his punch was a weak punch and he was not in control of that box for that one fleeting moment and that cost them. So I personally felt that Ramsdale could have maybe stayed on his line, would have avoided the hassle of uh, the ball wouldn't have gone to Lisandro Martinez in the first place if his weak punch. That's what I feel. But yeah, like you said, it's a case of United doing those little things right in that moment, taking the advantage of the set piece, and then yeah, we were back in the game. So Gaurav Katara in the chat says that Scott was horribly exposed and he wasn't doing a good job of man marking Odegaard. Walibai, let's talk about Scott McTominay. I mean, uh, in a crucial game, a game that has so much high stakes. It's a very crunch fixture, has a lot of significance after so long, and McTominay comes in with an unenviable job of having the game of his life to just make sure that Arsenal are kept at bay. Let's not mince our words. I mean, he was bad. He wasn't. I mean, there were moments. I think the only moment which stood out for me was his shot, where he forced Ramsdale into a save around the 30-minute mark or something like that. But then, apart from that, McTominay wasn't in the game. There was this one moment where Saka made an absolute mockery of him, megged him, and that instance basically meant Saka saying that, what are you doing here? I wanted Casemiro. Why are you here? That was the way where Saka absolutely breezed past McTominay. And even during the last 20 minutes, where Arsenal were basically all over us, McTominay wasn't able to recycle the ball well enough. And just when we thought that we were breaking their press, the ball goes back to Arsenal, and then there is another wave of Arsenal attack all over us. What did you make of McTominay's performance overall? Because as far as I feel, McTominay turns 28 this year, if I'm not mistaken. And the fact that he does not have any traits that define him as a midfielder is a very telling indication of where he stands in the current pyramid of Premier League midfielders. McTominay's best is average for the Premier League. What are your thoughts on McTominay's performance versus Arsenal?
Well, when I first saw him on the team sheet, when I saw Eric Ten Hag trusting McTominay, I think that was the first time I was questioning his decision because I'm not a fan of McTominay. And if you look at how we played against City, Fred was our best player. I did not understand why we did not start Fred instead of McTominay because he certainly could have had a job on Odegaard. We could have probably man marked him. We could have cut the passing avenues through Fred, higher energy, higher tenacity. And even if you compare the two, there have been plenty of people who have criticized McFred, but Fred is miles above Scott McTominay. There's a big difference. And the reason why Fred gets called out is because he is braver than McTominay in the sense that he wants the ball, he receives the ball. When you receive more of the ball, of course, he doesn't have a really good first touch and all that. When you receive more of the ball, you are prone to make more mistakes eventually. As for McTominay, I do not see him making a lot of brave decisions. There are occasions where he's actually hiding. He's not receiving the ball at all, scared of making those mistakes. And the only good trait about McTominay is his shooting. I think apart from that, I honestly do not know what he offers. So I was surprised when Scott McTominay was put in. The reason for that, I think, would have been to disrupt play, to have tactical fouls in the middle of the park, something like that. But it did not work clearly in our favor. So yes, he's 28 now. There were reports that Newcastle United are interested in him. I think we should let him go. And you just once again have to praise Ten Hag, because the drop off from Casemiro to McTominay, there's a massive difference. So, in spite of that, we were almost about to pull off a draw. So, yeah, I honestly do not think that he has a future over here at United. Not his biggest fan. Do not for a midfielder, like I said, if you want, midfield is basically the most important feature in the football pitch, because you have to receive the ball, you have to distribute it, you have to be defensively astute, you have to be commanding. None of which have been in McTominay's presence for a long, long time. So yeah, I think it's time for him to move on. I honestly do not feel that he has a future over here, and I feel that in such situations, when you have to choose either McTominay or Fred, you certainly go with Fred. You'll get a much better outcome. Sure, there might be mistakes, but there will also be better moments with him in contrast to a McTominay.
Just by continuing with the CDM discussion that we are having, it's very clear that McTominay isn't a CDM, and like I earlier said, I think at 28 years old, the fact that he does not have any defining traits to put him in a rank of a midfielder speaks volume about his limited abilities. Gaurav continues with a question. We have an example, a standard of Casemiro, where we need a young center defensive midfielder to come as a replacement for Casemiro, or will be horribly exposed. And he is also talking about the fact that if Licha can play CDM, then that should be an option which should be considered. What are your thoughts on this?
Uh, in FIFA sense, I believe Lisandro Martinez is a very good CDM option. In reality sense, Eric Ten Hag is pretty sure what is the correct position of Lisandro Martinez and where he can benefit the most. See, no disrespect to Scott McTominay, but when you are called up, as you have said, one of the biggest games of the season, you have to be a little bit more responsible. You have to understand your role a little bit better. Yes, there is a manager who is instructing you, but he is also busy in instructing other 10 players of how to perform on the pitch. So if somehow manager doesn't communicate you in a way that you are my only CDM left on the bench, so you have to understand that yes, in the absence of Casemiro, I have a very huge burden on my shoulder. But how can I just relax this burden is being Scott McTominay and not trying to be Casemiro. So he was not even Scott McTominay on Sunday. The Scott McTominay that I have seen, although he has been pretty average for past couple of years, but he has somehow always knew that what his role was, and he was just clueless on Sunday, just clueless, just running anywhere, not at all helping out your defender. Then what are you playing for? If you cannot help your defense, forget the attack. If you cannot help your defense against a quality attack of Arsenal, when where Saka was just cutting in, and I saw Saka putting three shots in a span of 7 to 8 minutes in the first half itself, and I was quite surprised at how come we are allowing this. We can blame any other player on the pitch and it will be right because it was a collaborative loss. But what is McTominay doing on that pitch? And that is the question. And if you are going into the market for a young CDM or even any player such as you're thinking right now, you have to understand what type of player you're buying because you have already one of the best CDMs in the world. Now, if one of the best stadiums in the world is not available to you, you always need I think the traits similar to that. Quality may not be, but the traits have to be similar to that. And I just don't think McTominay is clicking anywhere near to any midfield position that we have. He doesn't have any quality, even for a bit. Like Valibai said, he has a quality shot, but okay, but did we need that shot quality there, or did we need that defensive quality there? That was so much a burden created by McTominay that even even Ericsson was being asked to just come back, which is which he cannot. To be fair, which he cannot. So very disappointed with McTominay, and I think I will not completely agree that Fred would have done, because I have my problems with Fred that we can discuss some other time. But yes, if both of them could have somehow stuck together there, then maybe there was a chance. But independently, both are just not enough to hold that CDM role for me.
Osis Bhai spoke about Clueless. Anshuman, by talking about Clueless, what was that third goal? I mean, it seemed like for that entire sequence, the United defense was on sixes and sevens. Uh, Aaron Wan-Bissaka fails to track Zinchenko's run from the side, plays him on, and it's just a comedy of errors at that point in time. I mean, you let Nketiah just breezes past between two players and just pokes in the rebound. I mean, what was that third goal? Because I've looked at it is a collective error of our backline. None of our backline can cover themselves in glory as far as that second Nketiah goal is concerned. What do you make of that third goal? I mean, is it what Ten Hag is talking about? The fact that we thought that we would get the draw. We've repelled the best of Arsenal attacks, and now it's only a matter of time. Does that one split second of just that one split second where there is a lapse where your guard is down, was that the reason of that cumulative failure, or is it much more than just that?
See, when you are going to play with a team in which there are a lot of players that the manager would rather not play if he had the chance, then you put yourself in a situation where potentially there will come a moment in a game where all those players will collectively be put in a position where they'll end up creating a comedy of errors. So, as far as Arsenal are concerned, that is an example of fortune favoring the brave insofar as they kept going at it. And if Eric Ten Hag, to be perfectly honest, that match, if we could say that the match had a more deserving result, I think it would have been a 2-2, because both of the teams were really not that. Really could not be put apart that too much. It was a matter of finer margins. It just so happens to be that in this very moment, all those shortcomings that United system had for the entirety of the game came together to open that space for Nketiah, who's then found on side, and he just flicks the ball in. So it was an opportune moment for him. And from an Arsenal point of view, you could say, okay, they had it coming, they deserved it given the amount of chances they created. On United's end, you could say that, okay, it's highly unfair on our part because we defended quite well given the situation we were in. So both of those arguments can be made, and the reality was always lies somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it was a bit of a comedy of errors. And at that moment in the game, you do not want a goal like that to go in. Like if someone slaps a ball in from 45 yards and it hits top bins, okay, then you have to raise your hand up and say, okay, that's a fantastic shot, not much can be done there. But when a goal like that goes in, you then feel really bad about having to walk away without any points. But yeah, it is what it is. That is just a reflection of where we are at the moment, insofar as even the best starting 11 that Eric Ten Hag could put out does not have the kind of players that he would ideally want. So that is the reality of the situation. And we are going to have moments like these in which a comedy of errors would come. This was maybe on the lower end of that scale. Many a times we'll consider even funnier goals than that. And we had that experience as well with Brentford earlier in the season when we had 4 goals inside 30 minutes. So it has been worse for us as well. This is the kind of season we had to endure this time around, where we'll have good performances and we'll have some slapstick moments. So yeah, but on a larger scale of things, when you contextualize this into a case of the entire season, this is nothing out of the ordinary for United. This is something that has happened before. It will happen again before the season ends. And in between that, we'll have good performances, and we just have to hope that those good performances are good enough to yield into any kind of good result for us, so that we can turn back and say, okay, this season has been worth it.
I mean, fair enough. You spoke about the Brentford game, and that was more than a comedy of errors. I mean, that was just a tragedy on so many levels. Come a long way from there, and like you said, it will ebb and flow. The balance of play would move from one scale to another. Walibai, let's talk about the last 20-25 minutes. I mean, this happened with the Crystal Palace game as well. where instead of adding to what we have, we decided to hold on to what we had, and we drop points there. And I think we followed a similar strategy here as well, where when Ten Hag bought on Fred for the last 20 odd minutes or so, it made pretty clear sense to everyone that at this point United is content to settle for the draw. Do you think that could things have panned out better in both of the games had we decided to take the game ahead and take the game to them? And let's isolate the Arsenal game in particular. What if at that point in time had Fred not come on and Garnacho would have come on? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the fact that we wanted to hold on was the reason that we lost points? Or do you think that holding on for a draw at that point was the right decision?
I feel that yes, he missed out on his subs. I think Fred, if he was coming on, he should have either come on instead of McTominay or Ericsson, because Ericsson cannot keep up for 90 minutes. I think this was his first game in which he has featured for 90 minutes, and strangely enough, this was statistically the most intense game that he's played for United so far. So I think Fred instead of Ericsson would have made sense. And you should have brought in Garnacho for Anthony. That is something which we should have done. And we have seen that counter-attacking is one of our fortes under Eric Ten Hag. We have been pretty efficient with that, especially once we played successfully from the back. So I think that could have worked in our favor. Bringing him in the 91st minute did not make sense at all. So I think, yes, we were overwhelmed with what Arsenal were doing with us, and at the same time, you can understand what Eric Ten Hag was feeling like at that moment. The Emirates was completely, going berserk with the way that they were playing. I think that's 64 to 65 touches in our box. That's the most number of touches that any team has had in this Premier League this season. It just goes to show that they were dominating us. Then he had this in mind that Casemiro is not there on the field, so I think we should make a defensive substitution. So deep down, I think he knew that when I know it's funny to say it, but deep down he knew that it's very difficult to win against this team. If we do manage to win against it, I think it might just be a set piece like what Lisandro Martinez scored through a header. So I think deep down he did accept that a point is something which will be golden for us, because once again we are missing our best player. This is the best team that we are facing against, and they were in the mood on that evening. So. It's a bit of not black and white. It's a bit of gray over here. I think if you could have opted for Garnacho, then yes, you could say there was a chance of a counter attack. But yeah, Ericsson should have definitely been subbed off. Be it Garnacho coming on in place of him. If you want to be more attacking, if you want to go for the win, or Fred coming in instead of Ericsson, because you clearly saw that he wasn't offering anything after the 65th to 70th minute. So it was a big hole in the middle. McTominay hiding from the ball, not doing much enough. Ericsson doesn't have the legs, so you're basically getting overrun. So that's where I think he messed up, and I hope he fixed. I know he's going to improve from this. Even he admits it. So yeah, I think Ericsson has to play 65 to 70 minutes, and this is why we need signings. Unfortunately, we won't be getting it this January because of the sale of the club and all. But yeah, we will have to make do with what's happening right now. So.
Fair enough, Wali bhai. We have Moses on the stream with us. Moses, a warm welcome to you. Hope you're doing well. Moses, my question to you is a similar one to what I asked Wali bhai. So at 69 minutes, the game is still not entirely out of our reach. The score is 2-2, and Ten Hag brings on Fred. And after that, it was pretty much one-way sailing where Arsenal just got in wave after wave after wave of attacks. And it was a case of us holding out for how long? And do you think that maybe Ten Hag could have bought in Garnacho, because that could have been the time where we could have had an outlet to feed the ball? I think this was the exact same game plan that we had in the City game. Feed Garnacho, let him run with the ball, and then let's see what happens. And it wasn't a bad game plan by any stretch of the imagination. And because at the end, Garnacho did end up having the telling contribution of assisting Rashford in the derby. Do you think the fact that we are holding on to what we have rather than adding to what we have is becoming a problem for us in the later stages of the game? Because we've seen that in the Palace game as well, that instead of adding to that lead, we were just holding on. We sat back, Palace got way back into the game. A similar story happened with Arsenal, where Arsenal then absolutely went for broke. They were on full throttle from the moment Fred came on. What are your thoughts on this scenario, Cup? Because we've lost 5 points out of 6 due to this reason.
All right, hi guys. So look, I think when I joined you guys for a very short stint, I think Ojas Bai was on that video as well, just after the game, and I didn't happen to have watched the entire game because I was caught up somewhere. I watched it from about the 65th minute to about the 78th minute, and then I had to get into some work. But from what I could understand, was that the team was visibly getting tired, and when that's a situation, then yes, the manager has to take a call that look, I get out of here, either take a point or I try and win this. You're absolutely right when you say bringing on Fred was doing neither of that. It wasn't going to help you win, and it wasn't going to help you see out the game either. So, in that respect, for what you ask, should he have thought of substitutions in a different way? I would say definitely. Um, what I, at that particular evening after the game, was thinking was that he should have shut shop, brought in a couple of more defenders, put the entire game to bed, and just seen it through. But because I'm sure you guys watched the entire game of it, and because you bring in the Garnacho factor as well, the way we used him in the City game, then yeah, that makes sense, because there was no point bringing on Garnacho for last 1.5 minutes. It's just ridiculous. So if you have somebody who can run at the defense, then yes, maybe he should have come on. Maybe if not the 60th or 65th minute when we equalized again, maybe sometimes around the 70th minute, and added 20 minutes go at the defense. But then, like Wali said, absolutely right, that Fred and McTominay are such a drop off the fucking cliff in terms of quality of midfield once you take off or you don't have Casemiro and Eriksen, that it's like a free fall. You just don't have you just don't have gravity working at it. It's just flowing all over the place. So look, I agree with you when you say you should have brought on Garnacho. Bringing on Fred was absolutely taking the game nowhere. Neither were you holding back and shutting shop, and neither were you going for a win. So yeah, Garnacho should have come on.
I was of the similar opinion, where that was the only place where I thought Ten Hag could have thought it in a different way, but then at the end of the day, he knows best, and he thought
And
he
then
found.
you got to also, sorry to interrupt you, Delvin, but you got to also understand where I believe that maybe a Garnacho could have been brought on in maybe the 60th minute or immediately after we equalized, is because Garnacho was relatively fresh, because he only played that 15 or 20 minutes against City, whereas Fred had the whole game against City. So Fred would have been more tired, or more, mentally or whatever, exhausted, because he had a very demanding game back then. So my thing would be that if you have a talent like Garnacho sitting on your bench, who basically had 15 minutes to run at City in the derby, and before then he had about 3 or 4 days off as well because of the previous fixture. So Garnacho, before he came on for the Arsenal game, had only played 15 minutes in 3 fixtures. Sorry, in 6 days. So there you are, your so-called raw talent who can try and make a difference on the pitch, who has only played 15 minutes in 6 days. So I would rather say that yes, he should have brought him on, given all the fixture congestion and people being tired and exhausted, this, that, and the other. So yeah, Garnacho should have been brought on.
Ojisbhai, let's talk about Anthony. Now, before the game, one of the key battles that were being looked on was Anthony versus Saka, both right wingers of their respective sides. And in this battle, I think we all know who the unanimous winner was, and that was Saka. While now don't get me wrong, Anthony does all the defensive work with absolute diligence. He tracks back. He has massive intensity in his presses. He's relentless in hustling and harrying his players. But is that the reason why we paid the money that we did to get him in the first place? No. What did you make of Anthony's performance against Arsenal? I mean, at this point, do you think dropping him would be a right decision? Or do you think that Ten Hag persists with him, especially coming to the fact now that Sancho is very close to first team activities as well? What are your thoughts on the Anthony situation currently? Do you stick with Anthony or do you twist?
Uh, um, my voice is clear, right? Brother, see, when Salah came in his first season, I'm not comparing the two very different players, but when Salah came to on his first season, he was not taking the opportunity the right way, and Sherwood and Michael Owen collectively said that once Salah starts taking his opportunity, he will be scoring goals like anything, which he did the upcoming season where they came second to Manchester City. And I believe when you have a player of a quality of Anthony who ETH trust, and that is why United were put into the place where they had to bid so much money for him and bring him here. You have to give him game time. I understand that you cannot promote failure in the team, but some players really need the backing of the manager in a sense that they are getting played regularly in toughest of the competitions. When this starts happening and Anthony just falls into the place that what I'm doing wrong and what I can do right, the results will improve and the stats of the particular player can improve. Although Saka is in a very better, or should I say, an upgraded self of himself from the past couple of years, but truth be told, Saka is a person who has really worked hard. The manager has really worked hard upon him, and he was born and brought up to play football in England. Anthony is a player, he's a proper Brazilian who just loves to do play football. And he plays football in a way that no other player can. That is his quality. So he and the manager both are transforming into a player and a manager who performs in English football. So when the form, I should say, the reform gets completed and when the adjusting starts to fall in place, we will see better cells of both the manager, like the substitutes he couldn't do in the game, and both the quality of the player, the things Anthony is failing to do for past couple of games. We should not forget how good a goal he scored against Arsenal in the reverse fixture. He has the quality, he needs the confidence, and he needs the regular game time to put himself on the board.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's move on to our next segment. And I earlier put it, I just floated out a statement that United will be playing 18 matches in the next 63 days, which is a game every 3.5 days. And with the squad depth that we have, let's just say the fact that if we somehow manage to get out of this with zero injuries is going to be a miracle in itself. So Anshuman Bhai, the Dank Kid says that Scott and Maguire plus 20 million for Declan Rice. This is the plausible scenario. Declan Rice, yes or no? And what would be your alternative for him if no?
So I think Declan Rice as a number six is more of the kind of player that Eric Ten Hag would want, because he is very good progressing the ball from the back as well. But I don't really know if, given the fact that he's an English player in West Ham in the situation they're in, and he's also being scouted by other teams, I cannot see that transfer happening for a reasonable amount of money. And as John Murta already pointed out at the end of last summer's transfer window, we are not going to spend silly money the way we did the season before. So Declan Rice immediately is a player that I cannot think we are going for. I have a funny feeling that next season Ten Hag is going to demand Frankie De Jong again. But whether it happens or not is a different issue, which I don't think is going to happen for a lot of reasons. But I think he's going to do that again. To be perfectly honest, I do not have a mainstream name to throw for you. If we are to talk about replacement for Casemiro, which we should be talking about, this has been, as far as the recruitment is concerned, this has been one of Manchester United's many problems over the past decade, that we are not able to look past the mainstream names that come up in the transfer market on a regular basis. And if those names are snapped up elsewhere, then we don't really know what to do, because Aurelien Chouameni was one player, Real Madrid took him, and Ibrahim Songare was another name that was being touted, and he ended up extending his contract with PSV. And that doesn't really mean that he cannot come next season, but that is the one of the names that we might be looking at. But I think before we start talking about who replaces Casemiro, as much as I believe that that is one of our priority position, I think Eric Ten Hag still would be looking at the player to replace Eriksen, because Eriksen, as good as he is in offering control on the ball in build-up play, he's not a good ball progressor. At least not in the mold that Ten Hag wants in someone like Frenkie De Jong. So I think for him to be able to enact the kind of football that he's trying to play at United, before he starts replacing Casemiro, he'll ask about replacing Eriksen, and it is a bit of a worry for me. That is where my opinion slightly diverges from Ten Hag's, but he's the manager, so his is the opinion that we need to keep in mind, and that is the if Declan Rice would fit that role as well, but that is not a move I can see happening at this point in time.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Anshuman, by continuing on this topic of midfielders, I mean, there is a report that is coming out currently that United are currently interested in bringing Weston McKennie on loan. United are one of the teams that are interested. I think another team that has been making the rounds for the midfielder is Arsenal themselves. So, United for Weston McKennie on a short-term loan. Does that make sense for you from a sporting perspective? Because at this point, if there is another signing that United will be making, it's definitely going to be a loan signing and not a permanent one. Especially considering the fact that we do not have the money available to make a permanent signing. Fact of the matter remains. Do you think Weston McKennie is the right stopgap signing if we are looking for one?
If we are talking about stopgap signing, we need to look at Weston McKennie and the two clubs that he has been at where he has been successful. One of them is Schalke, and from there he went to Juventus. And the common thread between those two clubs, and they are not performing at the same level, they are two completely different clubs in different countries, but one common thread binding them together is the mismanagement of those two clubs from a hierarchical perspective. So this is a player who has shown at two basket case clubs. So in that regard, he should be perfect for Manchester United, because no one does that better than us. On a real note, when we think about Arsenal targeting Weston McKennie, then you understand that he's going to occupy the Shaka role, because he is more of a box to box midfielder. And if you are going to have that kind of a midfielder, you're going to have the other two midfielders exert a lot of control, link up with your forwards and your wingers if we are trying to create overloads on the wide, and then open space up for the box for this number 8 to bomb forward and then make things happen on a wider side of things. So Weston McKennie, from a stylistic and technical point of view, I think it does make sense, because he will also offer replacement option as far as Eriksen is concerned. And I'm not exactly sure where does that lead Fridge, because I think he has that. He is a number 8. He's not a defensive midfielder, and so he can play that role as well. I think it's merely a rumor at this point. I don't think Weston McKennie is the kind of profile United need particularly reinforcement in, because if you are going to talk about who replaces Eriksen, for me it is Fridge. And Scott McTominay does not. He does occupy that position. That is the role Scott McTominay and Fridge both are supposed to be at. They're both number 8s of two different kinds. But if you're going to talk about which one offers us more control, if Eriksen is out of the picture, then it's Fridge. And so it's not immediately a position that comes to mind when we are talking about this season and this transfer window. But if Weston McKennie is to happen, it would make sense, because it's not that we don't have players in that regard, but maybe Ten Hag looks at him and thinks that, okay, maybe he offers something other than what we currently have. So again, given that this is a rumor, I think it makes sense for Arsenal than it does for us. And because Juventus are going in all sorts of trouble right now, so it's basically a fire sale going on. So if you can get a player on the cheap, you try getting a player on the cheap, even if they're not world stars. So I think it makes more sense for Arsenal than it makes for us at the moment, and it's not exactly a move that I can see materializing.
What are your probabilities of this move happening out of 10 if you had to rate it?
3. Let's put it that.
Fair enough. Ojasbhai, let's talk about another target that we were looking forward, and that was Malo Gusto of Lyon. He plays at right back, but he was another name that we were interested in, but he's currently, it seems like he has his heart set on a move to Chelsea. Uh, with squad depth now becoming a massive issue for us, how do you think does Ten Hag address this situation? Because, like Walibhai said earlier, the fact that he's doing such a good job with this side with one hand tied behind his back as far as incomings are concerned, uh, what do you make of this situation and how do you think we go ahead with it? Because with, let's be honest, with the squad depth and the quality in depth, like Moses sir said, the drop off from Casemiro to Fred and McTominay is just like a downward spiral with no end. So how exactly do we overcome this problem? Because this, at the end, the fact that we get a Champions League place or we do not get a Champions League place will indirectly or directly depend upon our squad depth. So, what do you make of this problem, and how do you think Ten Hag addresses this?
Uh, Truth be told, guys, I really don't have any hope for this window somehow. Although journalists are saying that we are looking for a midfield, a creative midfield sort of signing, but I don't think so. Weston McKennie soup just falls into that, you know, uh, position, and I'm really not sure that we are going to make a signing. So what happens in this situation is right now is just pray that you somehow get out of this period injury free and you get best out of the players that you have. And I think one of the reasons that Kobe Mainu, am I pronouncing it right? Kobe Mainu is being promoted. I think Mijebri is on loan, and one or two players are also leaving for loan. So Mainu is being promoted, and we really don't have much options left on the bench. Fred and McTominay is a drop off, I understand, but to replace Casemiro with full agreement to Anshuman Bhai, although Tuchameni is a replacement to the Casemiro, but still a long way to go. So even Madrid are unable to replace Casemiro right now. Imagine a club like Manchester United. They have one of the biggest assets in the world, and I'm not sure how are they going to replace him, or just find a backup for him even. So a tough scouting period is going to be circling around this time, but when the new people come in the management, then it will start. Right now I don't think so United have options. They're just trying to get through this period of the number of games you told me that we have in 54 days, like 18, 19 around. uh the lack of quality and the quantity in the bench, we just have to survive on that. Even if we loan someone, I don't think it will be of that quality. It will be just for the sake of bringing in the numbers, because the right players are really not available right now in the winter window. And only players that I know a lot of people won't agree with, if you really want to target midfielders on the free, is Rabio and Tillemans. These two players that are available in July or August, these are the players you can target on free and use the funds elsewhere. Otherwise, you just have to pray right now.
I mean, it's so funny that you say that we have to pray, especially after the things that have been going fairly well for us. But yeah, it's a massive, massive problem for us. Just let's see how this goes. Moses sir, coming to another key position for us, where we have rectified it on the short term, but then there is no question marks about it that in the long term. We do need a bona fide number nine who can score 25 goals a season in the Premier League, not overall in the Premier League, because that's how important the number nine is at this point in time. While Weghorst for the short term fix is correct, is a step in the right direction perhaps, but as obvious as is the things that make him so good, which is evident, his movement, his relentless pressing, so on and so forth. The fact that he's not that quick on the ground has led to certain of our attacks being slowed down as well. And here's where things get interested. We are rumored to be interested in Harry Kane. And there are a lot of people who believe that Harry Kane should be our priority if we want to be anywhere near the title. Paul Merson has used these exact words, but I think the gossip in and around England is that if United get a Kane, they automatically get elevated to be challenging for the title come the summer. But my question to you is, Mojo sir, at age 30, do you really think that Harry Kane, and we know the parallels that we did sign Robin Van Persie at 30 and we ended up winning a Premier League title, but for a player who has a checkered history with injuries and most of his injuries have been ankle injuries, do you think a price for 80 million, which is definitely going to be more considering the fact that Daniel Levy would not want to let Kane go to a direct Premier League rival, do you think, let's just say the cost is 110 million, do you think it's wise to pay 110 million for a striker like Harry Kane who is 30? No wonder he's a great goal scorer. His goal scoring record does speak for himself. But do you think is Harry Kane the right profile if we do end up going for it?
I mean, if I was to answer that in one word, I would say no. And if I was to add reasons to it, I think probably you've said them yourselves. One, would Tottenham want to sell him to a direct rival? They didn't do it to Man City. I mean, he was ready to go to Man City at during, I think, the Euros, the summer of the Euros, I think. He was rumored to join Man City. It didn't happen. And I don't think it'll happen with United. And like Ojas rightly said, no matter which name we're getting linked with, Osimhen or whosoever, nothing will be made sure or nothing will come forth till we now have new owners. ये ख्याली पुलाव बना रहे हैं मीडिया वाले, and the likes of Paul Merson, XYZ, they also need their clickbaits. The reality is on the wall, so not reality, literally the writing is on the wall, that till United get new owners, we're not getting a new striker. Because let's be honest, if for any chance Spurs agree to sell Kane to United, when was the last time United spent 100 million on a striker? Yes, we did spend stupidly 86 million pound on Anthony, and we all know the return we got from that 89 million pounds spent on Paul Pogba. So will Erik ten Hag want to spend 100 million on a striker? I doubt it. And but then, having said that, if you have new owners, you never know. I mean, for all you know, those guys just might go crazy and say, "Fine, here is what 150 million. Go get yourself 2 strikers." You never know. So right now, excuse me, everything is speculation. Everything is just media rumor. Everything is one pundit trying to get the better of the other in terms of starting a speculation. But everybody knows that we will be lucky if we sign anybody else in the remainder part of the January window, that too on loan. Forget buying anybody. And then nothing happens before we get the new owners. Absolutely nothing. So for whatever people say, whatever people assume, whatever discussions happen across fan panels, जब तक नए owners नहीं आ रहे हैं, कुछ नहीं हो रहा है.
Fair enough. Anshuman bhai, with the setback that we've had now, that with 5 points dropped in 2 games, and with the squad depth issue propping up, and the next games become very important for us, both the cup games, which is the fact we play Nottingham Forest tomorrow and then we play Reading in the FA Cup. Passage in the competition to both of them is imperative, but I think, is it time that we finally trust players like Lindelof, who hasn't played a lot of football in the recent times? Is it time that we trust Maguire, who in the short games, in the short amount of 90 minutes that he's played, has looked solid but not spectacular? But again, he's played against opponents that you should be doing a decent, well and good enough job anyways. Do you think it's time that we trust these type of players to just step up their game, or is it still like we go out every game with a hope and a prayer that just things go our way, we do not have any major injuries to any of our players? Or maybe it's that time where we just go ahead and just bubble wrap everyone who we think is key to our progress? Because this is a very tricky situation, and I definitely am sure that there's not going to be one correct answer on how are we going to manage the squad till the end of the season. But what are your 2 cents on the fact that, especially at this point in time, we have to due to sheer lack of choice, we have to make do with the players that we have. What do you think, and how do we come out of the situation still intact in all four fronts?
Well, as far as Victor Lindelof is concerned, I'm surprised that he's already not using him as a right back instead of Aaron Van Bissaka. Because when you consider the two players and you consider their capability of trying to play the kind of build-up phase football that Eric Ten Hag would ideally want, so Van Bissaka does not fit any profile for Ten Hag, and Victor Lindelof would. He is a lot more technically adept in that situation, and he has played for right back for us in the past as well. So the fact that he is not being used as a right back is slightly surprising, but okay, Eric knows best. As far as Harry Maguire is concerned, he is the kind of player that Ten Hag likes, but that is he no longer has uh, agency on the position that he likes to play in because Harry Maguire likes to play as the left-sided centre back. He likes to cut inside in the pitch in the inward areas. His passing, his composure on the ball is a completely different than what Ten Hag wants. And what Ten Hag wants on the left-hand side is a left-footed centre back. So that immediately displaces Harry Maguire from the one position he's actually good in. And when it comes to playing, having two centre backs, both of whom could play, who are technically adept, are good on the ball, and could play out from the back. He tried doing this in the early matches against Brighton and Brentford in the first two games. It did not work out. He saw what happened, which is why he has had to shift to a pragmatic setup and rely on the likes of Rafael Varane and Casemiro. So Harry Maguire is not comfortable playing on the right. So I think against in a game like Reading, when we are playing them in the FA Cup, I think that is a good experiment for him to throw him into it. I don't think that anything beyond that is something that we should be experimenting because, as far as I'm concerned, we should be going all out in the EFL Cup. I don't care what anyone has to say about uh, us not facing the tough teams or having big games. I don't really care about that. We haven't had a trophy since 2017, and as much as I'd like to not bank all my expectations on us getting trophies, I think this is a very good opportunity for us. I'm again not saying that it's a given that United will win or it will be an absolute failure. I think we have a very good opportunity of going all the way. So Carabao Cup is definitely something that, at least for me, we should be prioritizing, which immediately opens up the FA Cup fixture we have against Reading, and in which we can and should trust the second team players a bit. So the likes of Lindelof and Harry Maguire should come in. The likes of Garnacho should be starting. Jack Butland, you assume he'll be getting some game time somewhere. So this FA Cup tie feels like one of those matches where he'll get to play a bit. So you gonna at some point you are going to have to trust your players apart from the first choice starting 11, because that's the part and parcel of being a competitive club and trying to win as many competitions as you can. And you have to rely on your 25-man squad, and you cannot really cry that you don't have enough players if you have actually 25 players but you are not going to use them because you don't deem them good enough. So one of those this is the January and February period is one of those phases in a season where the second team players really have to come through and have a chance to even displace the first team players. So there are a lot of good players, despite our paucity in the bench that we have in a lot of areas, insofar as number six and the right back and the goalkeeper to start with. So there are some places, especially the centre back role, in which we have some good options in Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof. So I think the Reading match, I'm going to circle that one as the one in which you can experiment, because if you go out, it's still early in the tournament, so you can say, okay, it's an upset, it happens. But I think it would hurt a lot more if United were to go out to Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup semi-final. So I'm targeting that. I'm looking at that. I'm thinking that if you can, go for it and go as far as you can and win the whole thing if you can. If you end up losing, that's fine, part and parcel of the game. And immediately then Premier League becomes the second priority, because now that the kind of position United are in, it will be very hard for us to miss out on top four. It will feel very hard, which is very much a possibility. But you're going to have to try and make sure that at least you do not get displaced from this situation. So I think if it were up to me, I would be prioritizing the Carabao Cup, because the final happens in February. So if we can go all the way, that might just be able to lift up enough to catapult throughout the rest of the season and secure for ourselves a Champions League place, which will in turn be very important in deciding whether we are in a position to go after certain players that we are talking about next summer or not. So yeah, I think the Reading game, upcoming one, is one of those matches in which experimentation is very likely. And apart from that, we are going to have to pray and just hope that the injuries don't happen. If they happen, not much we can do. But yeah, that's just about it.
Very aptly put and very well put, Anshuman bhai, speaking about what we have to make do and how do we approach it from here. With that being said, it's a very, very key week for us. And like our topic says, it's time for us to bounce back after the setback. So, Moses sir, before we wrap up, I'm going to take predictions from each of you. Do you see us progressing in both the cup competitions this week?
Well, I do, yes. And to a certain extent, I would uh, not disagree, but I have a different point of view from what Anshuman said in terms of it hurt more to go out. It hurt more to lose to Nottingham than to lose to Reading. I don't agree because losing to Reading, you'll become a banter club like hilarious. So, but the point he made in terms of wanting to have your squad rotation done, I would say that get it done in the Nottingham away game. I think it's going to be a balanced team between the bench warmers and the regular starters. Whereas for Reading, you can go with a strong bench based players. And for the return leg against Nottingham Forest, you can again go with a mixed team of benchers and starting 11. So I think we will go through in both the fixtures. Um, and no, 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 no. Ayushman Bhai losing to Reading, no. You're going to be bantered till the end of the season, man. You don't want to do that.
All right. So, Anshuman, bhai, what about you? Do you see United progressing in both the cup competitions and going to the final and the quarterfinals of the Carabao and the FA Cup, respectively?
Well, as much as a fool's game prediction is, I can see both of us beating both of those teams because you can put your. We have conceded two late goals in the last two matches, so it's really hard to acknowledge that. But we have actually been good in holding on to our leads for the most part of the season. So I don't particularly look at Reading and Nottingham Forest in the respective competitions and see that it's going to be much of a challenge. The thing you need to keep in mind about the championship clubs is that they are already having to deal with 46 games in a league season. So the games are coming thick and fast for them anyway. So they have very little time to go on a cup run and very little intent to go on a cup run. So for Reading, the game is going to be very much like if for 60 minutes they are able to hold us out, they might want to hold it a bit longer. They won't want it to go to a replay, so they might have a 10 to 15-minute phase in the second half, in the last half hour of the game, where they might try to go for a goal. Or if they get a goal early on in the game, then they'll sit back for the rest of the game. In both of those situations, I can see us breaking through and prevailing. So if on the day if we lose, it is what it is. So immediately, if I had to say, can I see United winning both of those matches? I would say yes. I think we are more than capable, and well, we'll wait and see what happen on those 2 days.
Just
And
a question.
just Delvin, no, so sorry to interrupt you. Does the FA Cup have a replay if
I
you
was going
ended
to
in a
ask the
draw?
same question. Does the fifth round have a replay?
I don't know. I don't know.
The replays are back from this season. All of the replays are back
Are,
from
are
this
are they
season.
back from the quarterfinals or the semifinals, or are they back from now?
The semi-final replays never happened because the semi-finals are played at Wembley. But the quarter-final replays are definitely here now. Yes.
All
So
right.
so we're in the
Fair
fifth
enough.
round, right?
Yeah.
So does fifth
Yeah,
round
this
have
is
a
the fifth
replay?
round.
No, 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 no. We have had just one FA Cup match, right? That's the third round proper.
Oh,
So
so
I
this
think
is
Right.
the
this is
So,
the
fourth
fourth.
round.
so this is the
This is
fourth
the
round.
fourth round match.
So when do
Yeah.
replays start from? Fourth round or a little later?
The
No,
replays,
it's
the
already.
replays already go on. The
Yeah,
replays go
third
on
round.
till quarters, and
Well,
from semis you don't have replays.
no, in that case, neither Reading because of their 46 game season, neither us. We don't want to replay.
We
No,
do
thank
need
you.
a replay. Yeah, exactly. I think we already are congested in a way. The fact that we
Uh,
would need a replay would bring this congestion to a whole new level. And yeah, Otis, bhai, what are your predictions? Do you see us progressing ahead in both the competitions?
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I have this gut feeling that Nottingham will come with full guns blazing. I just have this gut feeling. With reading situation, I think it will be a day off for a couple of first starters. Reading is a team that I'm pretty confident that we can get through. But Nottingham this week, I'm I think it's away this week.
Yes.
Yes, it's away. I think they are coming full gun blazing, and very tough to predict result this week. Overall, I'm positive to progress, but somehow just these two-legged semi-finals just just put you on your toes. So reading, I'm sure. Nottingham Forest, I would have to watch this week first.
After your Casemiro prediction, Ojasbhai, I think we'll have to be very, very careful with whatever you say because you predicted that Casemiro would get a yellow card, and sure enough, he did. And the fact that you're saying that you have to wait for the Nottingham Forest result, I hope you don't have to. I hope the result is already in the bag. But
See,
then you had.
over the two legs, I think we'll get the better of Nottingham, especially at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I think we've already beaten them once at Old Trafford, and very convincingly that too, I must
Yeah.
say. So yeah, I think past results would make us favourites, and we do hope that we come out of this tough situation a little more stronger, a little more better than what we were. With that being said, very interesting, very detailed stream. Thank you so much, Anshuman Bhai, Ojish Bhai, Mojo Sir, and also Wali Bhai and Weber for joining us. Do like, share, and subscribe. Show us love, guys. We are rolling out content on a much more improved basis, and all this content is for you. Thank you for everyone on the chat who've put in their 2 cents about the matter and who have expressed their opinions. Keep on doing this. We want to make the stream as interactive as possible, so that we exchange ideas of each other and not just talk amongst ourselves. Do show us love on Instagram and Twitter as well. We are available there. You can you can drop us a follow there. I say this on every stream. Tonight is no different. Every day is match day on our official WhatsApp group. You do not want to miss any update on that. And apart from that, do check out our website. A lot of cool stuff to lot of stuff to go forward through. There are predictor competitions making in the rounds. There are quiz competitions that are making the rounds. There's a blog section for all the readers out there. You can go out and patronize and do enjoy yourselves. With that being said, this is Delvin along with Mojo Sir, Ojas Bhai, and Anshuman Bhai wishing everyone a good night. Please do take care of yourselves. We will see you very soon. Till then, it's goodbye. See you.